Welcome to the Academy. I'm here to help you navigate the curriculum matrix and ensure a smooth transition to the advanced modules. Why do they have to leave if they are finally safe here?
She asked him on a Tuesday. Not because Tuesday was special. Not because something had happened that morning that made the question feel urgent. She had simply been watching him for 3 weeks. And on Tuesday she finally decided that watching was no longer enough. Why do humans cry? Liaison Officer Caden Marsh had been working at the Velinari Joint Education Center for 2 years. His role was straightforward on paper cultural liaison, facilitating communication between human staff and the alien student population, smoothing the edges of the places where two very different sets of expectations met and sometimes did not fit together cleanly. In practice, it meant he spent most of his days being the person that students came to when something confused them, and staff came to when something needed explaining, and everyone came to when the answer to their question did not exist in any official documentation. He had not planned to end up in this role. He had come to the Joint Education Center originally as a temporary placement while a longer-term position was sorted out, and the temporary placement had extended once, and then again, and then a third time until it had quietly become permanent, without anyone formally deciding that it should. His supervisor had told him, at the end of the first year, that he was the best cultural liaison they had ever had. He had thanked her and not asked why, because he suspected the answer was that he genuinely found the questions interesting, and that this was rarer than it should have been. He was used to questions. He had been asked in 2 years about human sleeping habits, human conflict history, human humor, human concepts of time, and once, memorably, whether it was true that humans could survive on a diet consisting entirely of a specific processed grain product, which had required a longer answer than the student had expected. He had not been asked this one before. The student's name was Lyra. She was Keth Doroth, 8 years old by her species calendar, which put her developmental stage at roughly equivalent to a 10-year-old human. She had been attending the Joint Education Center for 4 months, and she had spent most of those 4 months doing what Caden had noticed. She did with everything, watching carefully before deciding what to think. She had been watching him for 3 weeks before Tuesday. He had noticed her watching on day 4 and had decided not to acknowledge it because acknowledging it would have changed what she was seeing, and what she was seeing seemed more important than whether he knew about it. "Why do humans cry?" she said again, because he had not answered immediately, and she was the kind of child who followed up. Caden looked at her for a moment. Then he looked at the bench they were standing near, in the courtyard outside the main building where students went between sessions. He sat down on it. Then he looked at Lyra. "That," he said, "is going to take more than a quick answer. Do you have time?" She sat down beside him. "Yes," she said. "Before we go further, I want to know where in the world you are watching this right now. Drop your city in the comments below. I read every single one. Now back to the courtyard." And the answer Caden gave that took the rest of the afternoon. The first thing Caden said is that crying is not one thing. That is the part that confuses most people who ask about it. They think it is a single response with a single cause. But it is not. Lyra was listening the way she listened to everything completely, without fidgeting, with the specific quality of attention that suggested she was storing the information as it arrived, rather than waiting for a summary at the end. "There is crying that happens when something hurts," he said. "Physical pain. That is the most straightforward kind. The body produces a response to damage or discomfort, and part of that response, for humans, is tears. Not all species do this. Humans do." "Why?" Lyra asked. "Honestly," he said, "the full biological explanation is complicated and scientists still argue about parts of it. The short version is that it may have started as a distress signal, a way of communicating that something was wrong, visible from a distance that other humans could respond to, a way of saying I need help without words, before humans had words." Lyra considered this. "But humans have words now," she said. "Yes," Caden said, "but the crying stayed. The body kept doing it even after the words arrived. Because bodies are old and habits run deep." He paused. "That is true of most species, I think. The old things stay even when the new things come." She nodded slowly, and in the way she nodded when she was accepting something into the larger structure of what she was building. "So the first kind is pain," she said. "And the body signals it even though you could also use words. Yes, he said. And more than that, sometimes the crying happens alongside the words, or instead of the words or before the words arrive. Sometimes the body is faster than the language. The body is faster than the language, she repeated. The way she repeated things she was not done thinking about. That is interesting. The Keth Dorith body is slower than our language. We describe pain in great detail before our physical responses begin. He looked at her. That is very interesting, he said, and meant it. I did not know that. Most humans do not, she said, without particular judgment. It is not documented well. She paused. What is the second kind? The second kind, Caden said, is harder to explain. He had been thinking as he spoke, about how to say what he wanted to say in a way that would be accurate and also comprehensible to an 8-year-old Keth Dorith, who had grown up in a culture where emotional expression followed different patterns than the ones he had learned. He was not trying to simplify. He was trying to find the right angle. Humans cry when they lose something, he said. When someone they care about is gone. When something that mattered to them ends. When the world changes in a way they did not want it to change and cannot make it change back. That is sadness, she said. Yes, Caden said. That is sadness. And sadness is, he paused, looking at the courtyard, at the other students moving through it, at the ordinary afternoon happening around them. Sadness is the feeling of something being absent that should be present, of a shape in the world that used to be filled and now is not. Lyra looked at him carefully. You are speaking from experience, she said. It was not quite a question. I am. She did not ask what the experience was. She stored it the way she stored everything and moved forward. What is the third kind? She asked. Before the third, he said, there is something I want to say about the second. Because the second kind is not just about losing people. She waited. Humans also cry for things they never had, he said. For possibilities that closed before they opened. For versions of themselves they did not become. For futures they imagined and then had to let go of. He paused. This is a harder kind of sadness to explain, because there is no clear absence. The thing that is missing never existed. But the space for it existed. The expectation of it existed. And when the expectation ends, the space remains. And that space can feel very large. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Long enough that he thought she might have decided to skip to the next question. Then she said, I understand that kind. He looked at her. She was 8 years old. He did not ask what she understood it from. What is the third kind? She said again. The third kind, Caden said, is the one that confuses people most. He had been leading up to it for a reason. The first two were understandable pain, loss. Those were things most species could map onto their own experience, find the equivalent, build the bridge. The third one was harder. The third one was the one that took the longest to explain because it required the listener to accept something that seemed, from the outside, like a contradiction. Humans also cry when they are very happy, he said. Lyra's expression shifted. Not confusion exactly, more like the specific look of a mind encountering something that does not fit the structure it has been building and is deciding what to do about it. That does not follow, she said. I know, Caden said. It does not follow. And yet it happens. I have seen it happen. I have had it happen to me. He thought for a moment about how to build a bridge to this one. Do you know what it feels like when something is so large that you cannot hold it? She thought about this seriously. Like trying to carry too much at once, she said. When the pile is too high and you cannot see over it. Yes, he said. Like that. Now imagine that the pile is not things you have to carry but feelings. Feelings that are too large to fit inside the ordinary moment you are in. Feelings that are more than the space available. He looked at her. Sometimes humans cry because something is so good, so important, so much more than they expected, that the body does not know what else to do with it. The feeling has to go somewhere, and tears are one of the places it goes. Lyra sat with this for a while, then she said, Can you give me an example that is not abstract? Yes, he said. That is a fair request. He thought about which example to give. He had several. He chose the one that was true, and also the one that was complete, the one that had all three kinds in it at once, which made it the most accurate answer, even though it was also the most personal. When I saw my sister's child for the first time, he said, she was born early and there was a period when we were not certain she would be healthy. We waited for several days. I was on the other side of the station and I could not get there faster, and when the message came that she was healthy and that the risk had passed, I was in a corridor. By myself. And I cried. Lyra was watching him carefully. It was all three kinds, he said. The relief from the fear that is close to the first kind, the body responding to something intense. The gratitude for what was not lost that is the second kind, the absence that did not become permanent, and the size of it, the fact that she existed and was going to keep existing and I was there to know it, even from a corridor across the station. That was the third kind, the feeling that was too large for the space. All three at once, Lyra said. Yes, he said. They are not always separate. She was quiet. Then is she well now? Your sister's child? She is 4 years old, he said. She recently decided that her favorite food is something that is objectively not food, which I am told is normal for that age. Something happened in Lyra's expression. The Keth Dorith equivalent of a smile. What is the not food, she asked. A type of decorative sand used in small indoor plant containers, he said. She ate a significant quantity before anyone stopped her. She was fine. The equivalent of a smile became more pronounced. That is not food, she agreed. No, he said, it is not. They sat for a while longer. The afternoon had moved on around them. Most of the other students had gone back inside. The courtyard was quieter now, the light lower, the specific quality of late afternoon that felt like a day settling into itself. Caden thought about something he had not said yet. He had given her three kinds, and he had answered her follow-up about his sister's child, and he had explained the sand, which she had found appropriately absurd. But there was something else in the question that he had been circling around without landing on, and he was not sure if she had noticed he was circling. She had. There is something else, Lyra said. It was not a question. He looked at her. Yes, he said. What is it? He took a breath. Crying is also sometimes something that happens when you finally stop holding something. When you have been carrying something for a long time, and you are in a place where you do not have to carry it anymore. And the putting down of it is so unfamiliar that the body does not know what to do, and it cries. Lyra was very still. That one, he said, does not fit neatly into pain or sadness or happiness. It is its own thing. It is the feeling of permission, of being somewhere safe enough to let the weight down. He was quiet for a moment. Humans spend a great deal of time carrying things. We are not always aware of how much. And when something lifts a fear resolved, a grief finally acknowledged, a kindness received in a moment when we did not know we needed one, sometimes the body marks the moment with tears. Not because something is wrong. Because something has finally been allowed to be right. The courtyard was very quiet. That is the fourth kind, Lyra said. Yes, Caden said. That is the fourth kind. She sat with it. Outside the center, somewhere on the station, life continued in its ordinary way, ships arriving and departing. Thousands of people going about the business of their days. The large machinery of an ordinary afternoon. Inside the courtyard, an 8-year-old Keth Dorith who watched things carefully before deciding what to think, was deciding what to think about the fourth kind. I have one more question, Lyra said. Go ahead, Caden said. I have been watching you for 3 weeks, she said. Before I asked. I wanted to understand before I asked. She looked at the courtyard. I watched you with the other students. I watched you when you thought nobody was looking. I watched you when something went wrong and when something went right. He waited. I never saw you cry, she said. Not once. No, he said. But you know all 4 kinds, she said. You have had all 4 kinds. Yes, he said. She looked at him directly. Why did I not see it? He thought about this carefully before answering. Because most of the time, he said slowly, the feeling finds somewhere else to go. Not tears. Something quieter. A breath held for a moment longer than usual. A decision made to pay attention to something because you know it will not always be there. He paused. Crying is one of the places feelings go, but it is not the only one. Sometimes they just stay inside, and you carry them with you. And they change the way you see things, even when nobody watching can see that anything has changed. Lyra was quiet for a long time, then she said, that is what I was watching for, the 3 weeks. The way you see things. He looked at her. You see things like they matter, she said. Even the small ones, even when nothing is wrong. She paused. I wanted to know why, and now I think I know. He did not ask her what she thought she knew. Some things did not need to be said out loud to be complete. They sat in the courtyard until the bell for the next session rang, and then Lyra stood up, straightened her bag, and looked at him one more time. Thank you, she said, for taking the time. Thank you for asking, he said. It was a good question. She went back inside. He stayed in the courtyard for a few minutes longer, watching the light change, thinking about the things that stay inside and change the way you see things. Even when nobody watching can tell. He thought about the 3 weeks she had been watching him. He had noticed her on day 4, a small figure in the corner of his peripheral vision, always at a careful distance, always doing something that could be described as something else if he looked directly at it. He had worked with enough students to know what genuine observation looked like versus distraction, and what she had been doing was genuine, methodical, patient in a way that most 8-year-olds were not. He had not acknowledged it, because acknowledging it would have changed what she was seeing. And what she was seeing had seemed, from the beginning, like something that deserved to be left alone to run its course. He thought about what she had said. You see things like they matter. All of them. Even the small ones. He did not think of himself as someone who saw things particularly well. He thought of himself as someone who paid attention, which was different, or at least he had always thought it was different. But maybe the distinction was smaller than he had believed. Maybe paying attention, done consistently and without agenda, eventually became the same thing as seeing. He thought about his sister's child, 4 years old and eating decorative sand, and the corridor where he had stood when the message came, and the specific quality of the relief, not gentle. Nothing like gentle, more like something breaking open that had been held very tightly for several days. He thought about the 4th kind, the one he had explained to Lyra, the putting down of something heavy, the permission to stop carrying. He had not thought about that particular moment in a long time. Not because it was painful, it was not painful. It was one of the best moments of the last several years. But because he had filed it in the place where good things went and moved forward, and moving forward was what the days required, Lyra had made him take it out of the file. Just by asking. Just by sitting in a courtyard on a Tuesday, and deciding that watching was no longer enough. He thought about the question she had come to ask, and the 3 weeks she had spent deciding how to ask it, and the specific patience that required. And he thought about how the best questions were usually the ones that seemed simple on the surface and were not simple underneath, and how the best conversations were usually the ones that went somewhere unexpected, and how today had been one of those. He went back inside. At the end of the day, walking back through the corridor near the student common area, he passed Lyra going the other direction. She had her bag over one shoulder and a book under her other arm, and she was walking with the particular purposefulness of a child who knew exactly where she was going. She looked at him as they passed. The 4th kind, she said. I think that is the most important one. Why? He asked. She considered it for a moment, in the doorway between the corridor and the common area, with students moving around her in both directions. Because it only happens when you are safe, she said. The others happen anywhere. But the 4th kind needs safety first. So if you have had it, you have also had safety. She paused. That seems important. He looked at her for a moment. That is a very good answer, he said. She nodded once, the way she nodded when something was complete, and went into the common area. He walked the rest of the way down the corridor thinking about what she had said. The 4th kind needs safety first. He had not framed it that way. He had not thought about it from that angle. He filed it in the place where things went that he was not done thinking about, which was a different place from the place where good things went. The difference was that things in the first place kept coming back. Things in the second place rested. This one, he suspected, was going to keep coming back for a while. That is the story for today. Drop a comment and tell me what city are you watching from, and tell me this. Which of the 3 kinds do you think is the hardest to explain to someone who has never felt it? I think about that question a lot, and I want to know your answer. If this story stayed with you, share it with one person tonight. Just one. It means more to this channel than you know. And if you are not subscribed to HFY Universe, yet do it right now. New stories every single week. The next one is already on its way. Until then, stay human. Even when the feeling has to go somewhere, especially then.